Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to our first public forum. How are you all doing today? It's good to see that there are some people who are able to make it. Um, Before we start, I just wanted to give you all a general outline of how this is going to go, starting now and continuing on, hopefully into infinity, uh, maybe even 2025. So. First is going to be a 5 minute intro period. That's just for everybody to get settled and join in, and also for me to potentially in the future give you an update regarding last week's discussion topic if it's necessary. Right, so you can expect the intro to be a place for me to talk about what the response was in a formal way to the previous week's discussions. Then I'm planning on giving about 15 minutes of discussion per topic. Some of you may think, well, that's not really necessary because some of these things are just pretty set in stone. We all know what we want. But I think it's pretty clear just from the discussion that was happening in, for example, reworking the cloaking animation. There is a little bit of a difference in opinion and perspective. And this is supposed to be about player feedback, right? I don't want to be in the middle of the conversations that you all have. I want to be here to answer questions and to help direct it a little bit. But in general, this is supposed to be a space where the players do the talking, I take the notes, and I, give, responses where appropriate, and then I take that back to the rest of the development team. Enk may not be here at every single meeting. Jeff may not be here, or no other dev may be here at every single meeting, but I'm going to be here at every meeting, and you can expect that after the meeting is done, I will be taking a list of a summary of the player feedback and delivering that to the dev team for them to act upon that in whatever way they see fit. Then we'll have a 10-minute debrief at the very end where I'll basically outline to you all what I plan on taking to the dev team to make sure that it's consistent with the general consensus. And that's about it, right? It should be done in about an hour. It already took me 5 minutes to do this intro, so that's great. Um, to start it out, though, I'm going to start with something that I think everybody um, can be excited about and can be um, appreciative of, which is the ability to search for the neurobound tag in your inventory. There was a lot of support for that. And if there's anything that is missing from the screenshots that I've posted in that channel. If anyone is unclear what I'm talking about, if you scroll to the suggestions channel and you look at that, you'll see that there are screenshots which allow people to do what they were asking for. This is going to be coming in with a future client update. Is there anything missing from there? Any feedback on what I've shared with you already?
I remember a couple people asking if there would be the ability in the future to search for multiple mods instead of just one.
Okay. I don't know that that's what we're doing right now, but I'll make a note of that. Ability to search for more. Is that something that other people want as well? Is that an important thing?
I've heard a couple people mention it. I don't know
Or
if everyone agrees, but
so
it
right now,
shouldn't be
if you
that.
put in multiple terms, it looks for that as a phrase. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay, but you want to be able to search for it no matter the order that the mods are in, or no matter whether or not there are other mods in between them. So, for
They want
example,
an or instead of an and, perhaps, or do you want to only find stuff that has both of them?
for example, if I wanted to find a weapon that's radio and evil, it'd be cool to be able to search for that instead of having to search for radio and then pick through all of them to find one that has
Okay,
both.
right on. So you want an and, but not verbatim.
Yeah.
okay, is that let's see, is there anything else based on what we have in these screenshots, and I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. So what I'll do is I'll make a direct link to the channel so you all can see um, the
Can
specific.
I add something that's tangentially related but not directly related? You can't search for modifications at all on a base.
Okay. I wonder if that
That's
has
definitely
been.
related.
Yeah, I wonder if that's been fixed. I'll make a note of that. Searching for mods on a base. Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple different.
Sorry to interrupt. I think it's also true you can't search for mods in the TSL.
Oh, that's been fixed. If you look in the channel, you'll see that you can search for mods in the TSL now.
I didn't see that. Thank you.
Hmm.
Gundir, are you saying that this already works, or what are you? Or are you just rephrasing the request? Okay, yeah. Yeah, for some reason we don't have quite the same system in the different searchable lists.
Yeah, it seems like what you all are asking for are the same sorts of switches or tags that you can do in like a text editor when you're doing find and replace. Am I
It'd be a
hearing
lot
you right?
easier to use tags.
Okay.
I think that for starters, if we just have, just like the way Google does it, it assumes and, but we'll find partial matches. I think that should do most of the work for you.
Okay. That makes sense. And we don't need to go too complicated with it. Let's see. Search for mods on a base, potentially Boolean. That's a stretch goal.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So other than that though, is there anything else about what we already have shown you regarding functionality of the search function, the search feature in inventories that stands out to you as not being quite right?
I think just organizing the mods and that as tags would be a lot better, as
Okay.
we covered. So
Okay. Well, if that's the case and no one has anything else they want to add on that, we can potentially move on and get gain some ground.
yeah, I think you guys did a great job on that.
Okay.
Are we planning to archive these discussion channels once they get treated, or what's the plan?
So there's a bunch of things we can do. We can have like the discussion channels just hidden and archived or archived for a while and then hide them. Eventually we're gonna have to get rid of them because there's no way you can keep the channels forever. We'll hit the limit. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure what we'll do. But for right now,
Okay.
we can kind of defer that, for a future decision.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on, I'll give people a few seconds to, chime in with something regarding the inventory. I'll wait a minute before I move on. Okay, so moving on, the visual buff and debuff tweak timers. Now, this is something that people have asked for a lot. I myself have even asked for it. And I think we've we garnered a lot of support in a very quick amount of time for something like this, and I know why. It makes it a lot easier to play the game. And what we've been able to do is to kind of get started on this before this meeting happened, the same way that we were able to do it with the search function. And so Ingendum has created a kind of a mock-up of what that would look like. He's building the functionality out. Well, there's not as much work done on this as on the searching. Can someone, whoever's mic that is, can you mute it, please?
I feel like where it's positioned might get in the way for slaves and all that fun stuff.
Okay, so the positioning definitely has to change. So I'll make a note of that.
Like I would just move it like more over to the left where you've got everything else there.
Okay. Any other feedback? Don't hold back. I can take it, y'all. I'll give you a moment to look at the video. This is in a very, very, okay, I'm just gonna have to mute you. I'm sorry. This is a very, very,
Bar.
what's up?
Why not just have them as a bar instead of individual icons? That's just it seems a bit daft.
Can you
If
explain
you've
what you
got an
mean by
energy
bar?
tweak, so if you've got an energy tweak, you've got a little energy icon and a bar that runs down as the time runs down, so you can just see at a glance that it's going to be expiring and you need to replace it.
So
Instead
kind of
of
like
just
the
having a
health
thing
bar?
you have to hover over and get. Yeah, basically like the health of the energy.
That or
Mm,
you could put like a counter underneath it. Yeah,
Wouldn't
I
that
don't.
create a lot of bars in the UI?
Yeah, it would.
I
Can I
mean,
make
you've
a
got loads of space
suggestion?
under the icons.
Let's finish up with Tobal's thing. So
Yeah.
Tobal, can you repeat your response to me?
You've got loads of space under the icons. Right now, it scales based on your screen size, but even the smallest UIs have got plenty of space, so you could have set things for energy, for damage, whatever debuff buffs, and if there's nothing running, just have them blank, but still have them there. They don't have to be massive, but just some sort of visual indication, so you don't have to.
Sorry, let me clarify. When you say under the icons, which icons are you referring to?
The back.
The hotkey ones, the little squares.
Right. So
So
still.
you've already got
Mhm.
one for like your level. That's a good example. So your progress to the next level or your cargo, how much the bar is full. So just something like that that's moving and counting down as you've got.
Well, how would you know which aura is affecting you, like the intensity of the aura? You'd have to move your mouse over it even then.
Intense. What do
I
you mean
think I can
by
split the
intense?
difference here.
All right, Rend.
In other games, they will have an icon, and the icon will have the bar on the icon. So the square box will start at the top and then gradually disappear, traveling down the box as the tweak wears off. In addition, if you highlight it, it will have a timer. So the icon you have on the right now would have either a clock face where it's going around and gradually disappearing as it wears off, or would decrease, just like your energy bank does, from top to bottom as it wears off, and you could highlight it and show both the bonuses and the remaining time. Is that
Yeah,
practical
that's
to everyone?
basically what I'm saying.
So I think Ingen simply didn't implement any such thing because this is a really rough draft. I would definitely also advocate for some clock face or bar type
Just some sort of visual representation.
indicators so you can see roughly how long it's got left.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess the main question is, do you all like the placement of these indicators in that horizontal space beneath the hotkeys?
Yeah,
I
that's.
like it. I don't know where else you put it.
I could see it potentially being on the left-hand side or down by the chat bar
Mhm.
in some space. Like for example, there's a space down by to the right of the chat bar. You could do it there.
Yeah.
If I could see it
chime in
slightly below where they are now, just floating below that. If you wanted them to be bigger, then they could be bigger if they were below it.
Someone wanted to chime in just now.
Oh, hello, sir. Yeah, when I heard about this idea, my kind of the initial image I got that I envisioned straight away was kind of they would be within the actual screen and not the UI at the top, and they would have an icon respective of what kind of tweak they had, and then maybe a little timer underneath so that people could actually become proficient as to what tweaks they're using. So you have a certain type of damage tweak, you have all kinds of tweaks that you've refined to a certain setup, and then you need it to. The whole premise of this idea is that you could see exactly when something's going to be coming back down, so you know when to pop another tweak, right? Or when you need to adjust your playstyle accordingly. And I feel like they really need a timer, an actual kind of a clock timer, letting you know when they're about to run out. Otherwise, there's not a huge amount of point. People don't really have enough time to be hovering the mouse over it. You're using your mouse for other things. It's quite a mouse-heavy game.
Of course, we agree, and we definitely are going to be trying to move to a space where they are showing the player the duration in a visual way. Did you also you said something about you saw them being in the screen and not in the UI? What did you mean
So
by
you
that?
know how like you've got your chat bar at the bottom, and then you've got your hotkeys and everything just on a kind of inch. Well, depending on your monitor, you got kind of just a bit of a barrier at the top there that has all your information, like current slaves, level, everything else. I just expected them to be actually on the kind of game screen themselves, like that space in between, just kind of semi-transparent. Icons not too big, but somewhat noticeable, so you can make out the different types of tweaks and smaller icons. But somewhere there, just like around maybe the left, right, kind of organized in a little area.
Okay, so not too far from the center of the screen is what you're saying. Some place where you can see them at a glance rather than having to move your eyes to the very top or the very bottom.
Well, I mean, you could always make it so that it's actually a pop-up menu, like the radar, and just have it something like that you can toggle and you can see all your active current tweaks.
That might be better. Okay.
And then people can kind of decide where they want that visual aspect to be on their screen, depending on preference and monitor size. Because I can understand if someone's playing on a laptop screen, they don't have that much. Whereas if you're playing at home on a desktop and you got 30 something more inches, you don't really give a fuck where they are as long as you can see them and know when they're going to run out.
The ability
Okay.
to just move them in general would be nice.
Movable UI frame. Okay.
Because like I
That-
know I set my UI up differently than a lot of people.
Okay.
Because the current UI that we have, like with the radar one, which is I'm looking onto because it's actually quite a nice, neat one. You've got like the barriers on either side where you can change the X and Y axes to as much as you want. If you had something like that just had the tweak type stacked with little symbols and then just to the right of them a timer, I think something like that would be ideal, and people could decide whether they wanted them generally.
Yeah, that might actually make it moddable as well for people on the client side if it was done like that.
Oh, like different colors for different tweak types, so they don't actually have to even look at the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
kind
make
of-
it moddable for sure, I think. Okay. I made a note of that. That's a good point. Okay.
So, would that be a little similar to the window that you get for your ship, where you see the tweaks that you have underneath the resistances? Only that it's a small cut-off window that you can place anywhere around.
So are you saying, I'm logging into the game right now so I can double check to make sure that I understand what you mean. You're saying that in this ship window where it shows neural tweaking, the percentage, and then your
Exactly.
temporary bonuses, you're saying
Yeah.
you want that inside of that tweak window instead?
Yeah, I'm just
Or not instead?
paraphrasing. Is that what Curse is referring to? So only that with the addition that you get a timer for how long the tweak is going to last, or if it's a permanent tweak.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, you need to kind of assume that players know what tweaks they're going to pop, and they're not just kind of just mass spamming absolutely everything in their inventory. So we got just kind of yes, in a certain sense, what's in that window would definitely be good, but not all the information that's actually there. The type of tweak that you're using and what kind of bonuses it gives, maybe. How much of that particular bonus is giving you, completely irrelevant. You should know that. And also neuro tweaking effects that will just become a pain to implement, I feel. All it needs to be is a type of tweak that you've popped, because you can only actually, these days, unfortunately, you can't, stack your perilous strength tweaks and get 80% damage out of nowhere, because, you've only got one. I'm really quite sad about that, but you can only have like one type of tweak activated, right? So generally which one you've got equipped, because you actually took the effort to right click, pin it, whatever you need to do. So all it needs to be is simply tweak type and how long it's going to last for, based on how long the tweak itself lasts for.
I think we might want to remember that this can show like tweaks and auras are using the same system, so it'll actually show you auras that you're being affected by too, and you might need to know what the aura is. So that might we might want to keep that in mind, right? Like that it's not just going to show tweaks, it's also going to show auras, because auras have an effect. And if you see a number on you and you don't know what it's from, maybe it is important to know what the name is, or does that not matter?
If I can just weigh in real quick. So obviously you're all giving us plenty of good feedback to work on. And when we take it back to Ingen, several different things can happen depending on the circumstances. It may not be workable to create a pop-out window. It just depends on how the UI code is going to look for us, the client code. So what I'm wondering is if the best we can do is basically move these icons over to the left right after the experience indicator, and then put some kind of visual indicator on top of them to show the duration. Is that something that would be acceptable to you all if we aren't able to do a fancier solution?
The only problem with that is that for each individual tweak, they all tend to have different charge times, and in order to actually kind of, I don't want to say it's a lot to remember, but it's going to be, if it's what you say, which is like a bar, let's say, that fills up on each individual tweak that you've used, and once it reaches the top, it's finished or whatever, right? Unless you have an actual clock there, it's going to be impossible to tell how long you've got. You can't really base it on how much progress that bar has, because each bar is going to have a different percentage of progress based on how long the tweak lasts in general.
I was thinking a clock face because it's easier to say to judge the angular velocity, so you can kind of see how fast it's
or even a little numerical counter underneath would be nice.
Well, if the bar is side to side, and you have
there's not really much space on that bar.
in the
This
bar.
is why I thought it would be best to have it kind of semi-transparent, slightly larger icons
Yeah.
lining up on the top.
So the problem with the semi-transparent thing is it's going to interact badly with any like wormhole targeting box that happens to be in that area.
If I can make a compromise suggestion, please. When you highlight your bots in that exact same area, there's a drop-down menu which shows you both their shields and their energy. Can we have something similar for Kirsty's suggestion, where the bar, the dots, the icons are there with their clock, but if you highlight over them, it brings a brief pop-up window showing what the tweak is, where it's coming from, and the exact amount of time it has left.
I'll make a note of that. I can't tell you this at this very moment that is definitely something we can do, but that is something that I can communicate to Ingendum and see if it's possible.
It's gonna be hard to figure out where the aura would be coming from, though.
Yep.
I don't know. In the current iteration, when you look at the video that he put, it looks like it actually does show where the aura is coming from.
So if there was like a
It says
bot that
Apollo's.
was-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So if there was a bot that was named Apollo's or whatever, it would say from that.
Yeah, it seems to be saying that, like, when he moved, for example, if you watch the video, when he moves into the sun at 13 seconds, it shows Hope as the originator of that aura effect. So it does show what is giving you the aura or what is emitting the aura.
Oh, nice.
So you can show the exact tweak or the exact effect that is affecting you. I think he posted is this an updated video? No, this is not updated. This is a few days ago. Okay, so I think we've got a pretty solid understanding that you all want to make sure that the visual indication of the timer running out is clear and easy to understand. And Ank pointed out that a clock face is probably the best bet because it's easier to judge the angular velocity of a clock. We're all used to doing that in a way of looking at a timer. Then something like there's a stretch goal of a movable UI frame. I'm not sure if this is doable. If it is doable, hopefully we'll be able to get that done and shipped out to you all with no potential issues. And then the last thing is about if we can't meet that stretch goal, if we can't get to the point where we have a movable UI frame, what is an acceptable position? Some people are saying at the very top next to the XP bar. Some people are saying to the left, but there are some problems with putting it to the left. I understand there's some problems with putting it at the top next to the XP bar as well. Is there any sort of compromise or solution that you can think of?
My vote is for directly next to the bots, because that's where I'm going to be glancing.
I think next to the bots is a good idea, but perhaps, I mean, you've got your ships and squad mates coming from the right-hand side of your screen on that bar to the left. I think the tweaks and auras and everything should come from the left to the right, starting from the durability icon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So putting it up near the top is acceptable if we can get it to the point where it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my biggest thing about that is you have to think about the real estate that's being provided. Is this going to be something that you can minimize or remove if you don't want it?
That's a good point. All right, I'll make a note of that.
Just because with me, like, it drives me crazy whenever I have so many missions open, I just get rid of that stuff off my screen because it blocks what I'm looking at and playing. I don't care. It's just as long as it's something that can be removed or minimized or something for people who don't want it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's too much like window spam, too many windows in the way.
Just put it like a view toggle in the settings for it.
Okay, I made a note of that. Okay, is there anything else that we didn't cover or anything that we forgot or haven't addressed?
What would happen if you had too many owned objects or squad mates?
They'd probably overlap.
And then more so, what would the desired precedence be from the community?
That's a good question.
Well, you could set like a max
compromise.
extension for it, and then just create like a little scroll bar for it. So you just mouse over that area, scroll through, and it shows all the buffs.
Realistically, I think what's more pertinent to a player is the tweaks that are affecting their ship as opposed to the other, presumably 30 plus squad mates they're going to have in order to actually fill up that bar, full stop. And I have to say, I've never once, looked through and, highlighted absolutely every single square of a squad mate.
Okay, so so you're saying we should prioritize the buffs or debuffs
Oh, yeah, definitely.
and cap the number of squad mates that can be shown if too many are shown to the point where it pushes the debuffs, or
To the point where it would look silly and they would all become one conjoined line of green squares. You would have to have a gap in between to make sure you could differentiate between the two. Unless the icons are clear enough, but obviously I don't really know what the final deal is going to be.
Okay,
Or
do
just
other
have, like, a spec bar for like yourself or squad mates.
have a what?
Have like a toggleable thing between yourself and your squad mates. So if you want to see just what's expecting you, you just have it on like a little checkbox or something that shows your stuff. And when you have the other one selected, it shows the squad.
Okay.
Oh, but my thought process here is you're basing this idea off the fact that a pop out isn't possible, right? A toggleable
Yes, yes.
pop out isn't
This is
possible. Now,
the yes. This is in case we can't meet the stretch goal of having a movable UI frame. Right.
Now, the way I see it is squads already have a movable GUI frame where you can actually see who's in your squad, which is kind of the one thing that the little icons actually enable you to do at the top there. Apart from obviously being able to see the shield and energy of the ships and maybe the ship type if you can see that close and you're sitting that close to your monitor. But I feel like if a squad icon is there, they're already in the same gal as you, and more often than not, you're going to be able to see them on your screen, or hopefully you would anyway. So that's why I feel like tweaks should probably have a precedence there.
Okay, it's a fair argument.
May I add something to that? During runs, it can be quite hard to target a circle, say if you're doing Twisted Fate, Twisted Minion Leader, and you got 5 Death Strikers on top of him. So I often use the squad mates at the top to target the circle in such a situation. Would it remove that ability then?
That's a fair point.
I understand that, but instances are 10 max anyway, right? So if you're fighting something where it's really pertinent that you need to, get your shots accurate and make sure you're not wasting any of that precious recoil that sticks up to get, then you're only going to have 10 icons for your squad anyway, unless you're doing a PvP, which is less likely, or I don't know, something that you require more than 10. It's not going to really be too much of a problem. I think this is quite a niche thing that can get brought up, even though it is obviously relevant.
I think it's a fair concern though. Like we don't want to remove functionality that already exists. That's not something we want to do.
I feel like you could just cap out the buffs at a certain length across the bar there, and then just create like a scroll function for it. So you mouse over and it scrolls side to side through all the buffs. That way, the squad little area doesn't get affected.
We're just going to see what Ingen's able to work up.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring right now as well.
The only suggestion I had visual based, which is the whole reason why I wanted to talk today, was that to ensure that if a buff was going to give a negative effect, that it would appear as a different color than if it were a positive effect. So I just want to be able to differentiate like that, that's all. Say if something's going to give you minus 1000 shield charge, it should appear red as opposed to the green, which is obviously more of a positive color.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have to find a color that works. I think if we can find a color that works for people who may be colorblind as well, that would probably be good.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully we can find something that's intuitive and is also accessible. Interesting. Tobal created a little mock-up and he PM'd it to me. Would you mind posting that in the public forum channel, Tobal? I think if this is probably what we're all talking about, but we don't have a visual for it. Well, if he hasn't done it, I'll post it. Let me see. Boom. I think this is what we're all talking about right here. Here we go. Is this an accurate representation of what we're all talking about right now to make sure we're all on the same page?
Yes.
That works.
Pretty much. Yes.
Okay, and obviously the tweak bar and the squad bar would be, a different size depending on whatever, right? But if this is something that InGen is able to do, then I hope this is acceptable to you all. And hmm? So we'll stay in contact with you, or I'll stay in contact with you about this next week for sure. Like I'll let you know if there's any updates if I don't speak to you or say anything publicly in the actual channel. So I'll both post in the channel if there's any progress, and I'll also mention it at the beginning of next meeting. And Jenda may or may not post, in there as well. It's up to him to decide how he wants to share what he's doing with you all. But you will definitely hear from me. Any last minute questions before we move to the next topic? We got about 2 minutes allocated for it, for this particular suggestion.
Can I just chip in? If you're going to treat the squad space, I heard from an Angie on my team that it's really hard to select a certain player if combat is going on. I mean, you have 5 or 7 drones down and probably 4 people in your squad. If you need to get a transvol beam on a single person, it's hard to find them by the little icons. Shouldn't there just be a separate suggestion where you just revamp the squad frames completely?
I
mean,
think
you might even want to remove them from there.
I think that's a great idea, and you should make a suggestion. And if it gets upvoted, then we'll end up discussing that at the next meeting. But that is for sure related. But I think that is, as you said, a separate suggestion. It might even get done in at the same time, but obviously we'd need to figure out what is amenable to players, like what functionality they want to have preserved. So thank you for that. Any last minute questions before we move to the next topic? Okay, I've taken down notes on all of this. I'll share them at the end of this. And finally, last but not least, adjusting or reworking the cloaking animation. So this one is not as simple. It's not as simple as what it is that we were originally talking about. Those other two things got instant dev responses. And there's been a lot of conversation about this. Just for me to summarize it, I don't know if you all have been reading this, but I have. There have been a bunch of different suggestions. One of them was to just go back to the old way, which was little purple particle icons in a circle around the ship instead of the current space, which is the ship becomes darkened and a little bit translucent. There was some support for that. There was some pushback against it. There was another suggestion where the ship gains a glow around it. Basically a glow that takes the silhouette of the ship and like traces itself around it. That would require some other confabulation of settings and stuff that I won't get into right now. But that was another thing. Another thing was to get not get rid of, but take the translucency and the blue effect and the darkening effect and tone it way down. Babo had shown a picture of what he was talking about and what that would look like if you adjusted it. I can share like links to these specific comments at any time if people need to see that. But those are basically the 3 different proposals and ideas, right? So this started out as something simple, which was, hey, rework the cloaking animation. But once we dug into it, we found that there's not too much agreement on what the cloaking animation should look like. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions. And so I want to open this space up for you all to have a discussion about that. I'll try not to be too involved, but I really want to hear what is acceptable to the players as as a whole.
May I just ask why has this been a topic of discussion in the first place?
Okay, if I can, I deal with new players all the time. One of the major complaints I get, and this is my only concern in this whole discussion, is either when they turn cloaking on, they literally can't find their ship on the screen, or they have no clue what direction their ship is pointed, and if they're firing low tracking weapons, they can't aim, which is a huge problem for new snipers because they're at over 1,000 range, and if they can't aim, they're not going to hit anything.
That's brilliant. Can't we just make in a way that if your ship is cloaked, it doesn't appear as dark as when you see some other ships are cloaked? So it's just a modified, let's say, visual effect for you that is different from other ships. So that if you're cloaked, you can't see your ship, but other people will see the full darkened cloak effect that we usually have now.
I agree with my FC. I had my sniper and FC in the same or out of squad at one point, and the FC was able to see the sniper more clearly than the sniper itself could.
It's not quite just that, though that is a big part of it. The other complaint that a lot of people have relates to the aforementioned squad GUI at the top, where if your squad mates are cloaked, it's incredibly hard to tell them apart. And that's something that a lot of people have given feedback on.
I fully
So
agree with that.
that also ties into this suggestion.
So I know there is
just changing for yourself.
So this might sound radical, but what was wrong with the client one cloaking animation? Because it was fairly clear when it was on. It looked kind of nice. I mean, what you're basically doing now is making the ship semi-translucent, which is in a way even more boring than it was. So why ever deviate from that?
I think it was just a graphics update for when they dropped C2. They just
So
wanted to update the graphics
The problem
and stuff.
is you're trying to make a 2D cloak onto a 3D model and wrap around it. It's completely different ballpark. That's the problem.
I think one of the popular suggestions in the channel was to create something along those lines. I'm not sure how, like what difficulties we get into in trying to implement that in the client.
Well, I mean, with visages, can you actually have textures move on top of the model?
I don't know.
Because, I mean, theoretically, you could create a PNG with transparent pieces, like in little effects or whatever, that goes on top of the model, if it would render that way.
I mean, what it looks like is you would have a billboard effect. Well, no, you wouldn't want to do a billboard effect because it would look static and it would look really bad, actually.
Right.
We have to think about how is it going to look if somebody tilts the camera also.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not. Go ahead.
We
I'm sorry.
could go for a like an envelopment style, perhaps. Maybe like a sphere that is mainly transparent, but then has some kind of like moving, like waves on it.
Yeah. Chime in here. The thing that I'm imagining for like a 3D cloaking animation is almost like a smaller, more transparent Dragon Slayer's presence holo projector, right?
Yeah.
It's got sort of circle around your ship. It rotates, it moves.
Maybe kind of like the phased planets in subspace.
Please, God, no.
Not like to that level, but just some kind of spherical wave pattern that occurs around the ship.
Yeah.
So basically, like a Dragon Slayer's presence, but very, very
That'd be dope.
small.
That would be dope.
What would that? Okay. Okay, we can try that. I'm sure I can get someone to graphically mock that up. And if they do get that effect or that hollow projected effect, I don't think it would be very hard to like apply that. That's one thing. Is that acceptable to all of you though? Like what do you all think about that? Do you have any issues with how that might affect visibility on your screen? Do you think it might?
No, just make it you see like how the Dragon Slayer's presence is more
Yeah.
bold?
Yeah, I have one
Just
on
to
my
make it
Zerk right now. Yeah. I'm looking at it and
just a little bit.
it's It's not that intrusive. I don't know if I can't share. I can't really share my screen, or maybe I could share my screen. Like I'm gonna show you all. Because for me, I'm thinking this might actually be kind of intrusive if everything, if you have a bunch of bots, you have a bunch of players, and they're all doing this, it might actually, like, it might not look that good. I'm just gonna show it to you, and if it looks, if you see what I'm saying, maybe you'll get my point. Like this happening constantly with everything. Are you all looking?
I don't
Yeah,
think
we
Yes.
can
that's
see
the
it.
best way to
Yeah,
represent a cloak.
like I can see this immediately if you change the character. So I'm changing the orthographic. If you have this happening and you have my ship, these two ships having that effect, and you have like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 other people, I could immediately see this being really either distracting
Yeah, it's a
or
little bit
That's why I
exterior.
say mid dim.
even if you
Just
dim it
mid.
down though, it's still going to be this little weird effect that's constantly happening and it might be cluttered. Maybe I'm wrong.
To
Or
be fair,
just don't
it
make it.
doesn't
Or just
represent a
don't make it
cloak as
constant.
much
That's
as it does represent like an exterior like armor or a field that protects your ship. It doesn't
Like a
like
shield.
represent the sci-fi vision that people have of a cloaked ship. If that's clear.
That's true.
So
yeah.
what is the sci-fi vision of a cloaked ship?
Usually
What we
wraps around the
currently
hull
have,
of your ship.
like what we currently have, is very close
Yeah.
to it.
So
Yeah.
Currently on
so
display.
what is the thing about what we currently have that is unacceptable?
Too
It
dark,
cloaks
too
too well.
translucent.
You cannot see your
Your
friends,
image.
as I
Yeah.
can understand it
That's
so
all.
far. Your ship and your friends' ships,
Okay,
like
so
in the squad or in the.
I think there's two things. Number one, it makes your ship too hard to see, and number two, it makes your friends' ships too hard to see, right?
That's what I see so far,
Okay.
unless
Right.
someone
Yeah.
else has a different concern. I think some people want a more aesthetic look out of a cloak. I'm not sure. That's also to be taken into account.
Okay. What if it was something like this? I just posted it in public forum. Babo had posted this. I had shared this. So that's what that's what he's suggesting, and let me copy what it currently is so that you can kind of compare it. That's the suggestion, and this is the current.
So does it have some kind of moving waves on it?
Just like the current one, it moves a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, it would move a little bit, but it doesn't take your ship and basically create a new translucent model that it then applies that texture to. So
Maybe
basically,
make the
go ahead.
the movement part there a little more noticeable.
Oh, this
Yeah.
isn't animated, by the way, but what would that
Yeah.
look like though?
Well, it looks like you're using blue as the color, so maybe make it just a bit brighter or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It kind of just looks like it's not even cloaked.
I have
Yeah.
a
That's how that
suggestion.
looks to me. That don't
Yeah, if
even
you make
look.
the waves like more contrast, then that might just do the job without
Yeah.
having the model become translucent.
All right, I'll ask Babo to make a visual representation, or to either give it to me so that I can make a video, or ask him to do so, and then we'll post it in the and then we'll post it in the channel and see what y'all think. A second thing, right? If we're all okay with this, I'll give it a moment for people to stew and think about it.
What if you also did like a little blue outline around the ship, along with that lighter?
So that would require some change to shaders, right? And the problem is that on low, it wouldn't show up. I think it was Jay, already explained that like if we were willing to get rid of the current low setting, or to do something different for low, and I don't know what it would be, we could add a little glow effect around the ship. It wouldn't be hard at all. Like I was looking it up, and it wouldn't. Well, sorry, I don't want to say it wouldn't be hard at all. I don't want to speak for the programmers. It would be doable. That's what I mean to say. But then like there are people who play on low, and if you're playing on a little notebook that you got from HP for cheap, or whatever, right? Like it wouldn't be playable anymore. I think you can severely hamper the FPS that someone gets if we're not careful.
Um, Is the glow thing as essential for the functionality of the cloak, or is it just a visual effect? And I think if it's a visual effect, it could be disabled for low. It's not going to affect the gameplay as much. Whereas if I have a high-end computer, I would love to see my ship in a glowing like fashion if I was cloaked. I think that's fair, as long as it does not affect the way other people see my cloaked ship.
I mean, there's another side to this as well, which is not just your allies seeing your cloaked ship, but other players who
enemy.
potentially aren't your allies seeing your cloaked ship.
If you
And
cloak,
in the,
sorry.
I was just going to say, in the suggested one, you can see that it's taking a lot more highlights from the illumination in the gap, and I'm not sure how much of that would alter trying to find stealthy characters.
I mean, your ship is already dimmed, isn't it? Right? Like if you're stealth and you're lower vis and you're on the edge of someone's vision, the game already makes you darker or actually removes the ability for you to be seen. Do we really need to duplicate that with the cloak effect itself?
That's kind of what I was
wouldn't
saying,
know.
as in like the visibility and the whatever else that is affecting my actual ship visibility to other people, it's not going to be affected. We're only talking about like semantics of the visual effects themselves. So there is a lot of room to play around.
Does that answer your concern, Kenga, or is there something else that we're missing?
Sort of. I just worry it might change things quite significantly. We'll see. I'll be interested to see it once it's implemented.
Okay. I'm making a note of some of these things. So, if I am correct, here are the basic takeaways that we have. The first is that our stretch is, hey, can we get a little glow? Can we get a little glow? Can we get a glow around our ship when it is cloaked? And don't change the color or the translucence of the ship itself, right? Like, don't change anything about the way the ship looks. Just add a little glow when I'm cloaked. Is that right? And the acceptable alternative, if that proves to be undoable, is to change the current cloak so that it doesn't make you as dark in the game, and instead has a noticeable, maybe potentially light blue, kind of wispy texture effect that animates around your ship. And we'll need to get that color and the pace of the animation and the intensity right so that it actually is noticeable for people who are cloaked, right? Is that accurate as well?
More or less.
Hey, so there is another thing I was trying to think of. So would it be possible to have an effect where it's like a bar that goes from the back part of your ship to the front part of your ship, and it makes it like transparent as it goes along? That way, your ship is still 100% visible, but you get a clear effect that it's translucent or transparent to other players.
Okay, I think Babo also posted a potential way for that to work as well. It's funny. He came up with all these different ideas. But this is another thing I think we could do if this is what you're talking about. I just posted it in public forum. It may not have to be multiple bars. It could be a single bar.
It could be a single or multiple bars, but I mean, obviously the ship wouldn't be quite as dark.
Yeah,
That
we
would
could.
see on ship.
Yeah, we could do it so that it doesn't really change the look of your ship. It just creates a bar effect, right? The ship itself would not be, the color wouldn't be changed. We wouldn't change anything. It would just make a bar go over your ship while you're cloaked. So like an animated bar would go from bottom to top or from left to right or whatever you wanted it to be.
Right. Because that would, in my mind, require a lot less effort than having a sphere going around it or glow around the ship. In my mind.
Oh, 100%.
So what do y'all think about that? Having a colored bar go from the bottom of your ship to the top in an animated fashion intermittently. And your ship would not be, it wouldn't be translucent like it is in this image. It would look exactly like your ship.
Isn't that one of the first ways that cloaking has been made to look in Client 2? I think from the very old days when we first saw what cloaking is going to look like in C2, it had this same form where like a few bars are scanning across the ship.
Well, I wouldn't know. I think Jeff would know, but I don't know that he's able to chime in on that. I don't even know if he's around right now.
He was in the chat a second ago.
Okay.
Oh, he's still here.
Well, maybe he knows, but I don't know. I don't remember. I'm trying to find a video right now.
Very certain that's what we first saw for the cloaking. Maybe from one of the very old, the very first C2 videos. There was a cloaking effect on a shrimp. I'm very certain of this.
I think I remember what you're talking about. I'm trying to find it now.
You can still see that effect actually if you, I forget how you do it exactly. Like if you close your client or some.
Are you talking about when you die and get back in your ship with some kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and
So
replicate that.
I think that effect is still on, but then the translucent thing was added, and when your ship is translucent, you basically just can't see it.
Wait a minute. So I think this is what you're talking about. I found a video of a fuzz. Is this the effect you're talking about? Ew, look at these tractor beams.
Can we just delete the translucence then and get back to that?
Probably.
We can check and see what that looks like. I'll make a note
and
of
also
that.
delete the blackness. Just have the blue waves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the video. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just remembering, like, it used to be there, so.
Get rid of translucence.
And the
darkening of the ship texture. Just have blue waves. Okay. So I mean, if we can't do the whole glow around the ship, then this might actually be the better decision. This might be the thing. Just have those blue waves, because then we don't need to worry about losing support for low-end computers. Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to add before I move on to the next part of the cloaking thing? Because there's one more thing that I think we need to discuss. All right. Someone in the channel, I don't remember who, mentioned that they would like a way to see when they're cloaked in the UI, like changing the color of, I don't know, the viz bar. So you have a visibility indicator. Is that something that we'd need to do? Like maybe the eye color changes, right? Like the eye at the top goes from gray to blue when you're cloaked. Just a way to know that you're cloaked without having to be directly on your ship, if that makes sense, right? Like if you shift the screen a little bit and you're looking at something else, you can still tell if you're cloaked or not by maybe the eye being a different color. I'll crop
That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I'll crop an image because this came up during the conversation, and someone was like, "Yeah, we need to know." So basically, this image right here. Let me just post it. Boom. Right here, this image right here. If that eye was like blue, whenever you were cloaked.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, very simple, and it gives the idea clearly.
If that changes colors, that would be awesome. That would be an identifier.
Okay, so I'll make a note and see if there's some way for us to change that. I don't know how that would work exactly. I think it's possible. Maybe we'll see.
Well, and if you really wanted to, you could just make it like a little mini hotbar to where it's a button that you click, like a hotbar button.
Oh, so you mean bind that bar to like make it a clickable and make it turn your cloak on and off?
Yeah, the bar would still remain the same. It's just that little eye. Just turn that into a little button to where they could click that on and off, and it changes just like the hotbar. It changes color.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Gives another one.
Okay, so we're getting up into the final few minutes of this. So I have a little bit less time than I wanted to give you a summary of what I'm going to be presenting to the rest of the team. But before I do so, is there anything else that I'm forgetting or that I've failed to acknowledge? All right, sounds like it's not. Okay, so here's what I have. The first thing is when it comes to searching your inventory, you all have asked for the ability to search for multiple mods instead of just one. Kind of basically Boolean functions. I don't know if we'll be able to do all of those, but we'll see. Searching for mods on a base, so you want to be able to find modded items on a player base. I'll make sure I put down player base. And the stretch goal is potentially more Boolean functions that you can do in text editors. I don't know that this is doable, but if you don't ask, you won't receive. So moving on to the visual buffs and debuffs. So you wanted a visual indication of the timer running out, right? And potentially a clock face. And then the stretch goal is like a movable UI frame that can be closed or opened. And if that stretch goal is not something that we can do, then we wanted to be able to have a way to choose whether or not it shows the squad mates or their tweaks or your tweaks or our effects, so that you can choose whether or not you care more about being able to select and target people or knowing what is affecting you. And you also wanted there to be functionality for people to disable it within the interface, so that they can turn these things off if it's too intense. And then last but not least, you wanted to make sure that positive buffs and negative buffs, the difference between them is very clear, probably via a color, maybe even some sort of other effect if it's deemed reasonable. And then for cloaks, the stretch goal is, hey, can we change this to something that's more cool, like a glow around our ship when it's cloaked, and then the ship doesn't change itself. Again, I don't know that this is very doable, considering it would require us to basically lose support for lower end computers. I think it's much more likely that we'll get rid of the translucence and darkening of the ship texture and just have blue waves coming over. Again, I'll bring all of this to the dev team though, and we'll see what they say. And then allowing people to, one, know that they are cloaked by visually changing the visibility bar, and two, allowing people to click on the visibility bar to turn their cloak on and off. Is that an accurate summary of what we've discussed here?
Sounds like it.
Okay. Are there any last minute questions or comments that anyone wants to throw in before I wrap this up?
I think this whole thing is very positive, and you will get much more direct feedback from the players, and it's a good practice.
Okay. Thank you. That was our hope. Okay, thank you everyone. I will be around for maybe 10 or 15 more minutes, but the meeting is officially over. Thank you for participating. I'll make sure that I get this to the devs, and I'll stay in contact with you in these chats about them. I will probably be archiving them. Yeah, I'm about to explain Chrono. I will probably be archiving these chats. I'll make it indicated, like I'll indicate that they are not the primary ones, and I'll pull down 3 more suggestions from the suggestions website itself. So just to let you know how I plan on doing this so that everyone understands, I'm going to mark them as implemented. That does not mean that they have been added into the game, and I'll make a comment on the suggestions, but I need to do that so that they are no longer in the suggestions page and in the running from first, second, or third. Do you all understand what I mean by that?
Yes.
Okay, so I need to do that so that it's clear on my end and your end what is first, second, third, and fourth. But that does not mean that it has been added into the game in the exact way that it has been described. So that's just a heads up. What it's looking like right now is that we're going to be doing make station research, add account slots, the trade bot order counter, whatever the suggestion is, I'm not sure. We'll probably find out in the discussion. And credits should automatically appear in players' coin purse or whatever. So I'll give it probably to the end of the day, and then I'll allow people to influence the votes a little bit, and then I'll lock it in by the end of today and create the channels. and then we can begin discussion on those things and that will be the primary focus for next week's meeting.